I'm Andy Reed. I'm the director of the Duke University Marine Lab. I'm also a conservation scientist. I study endangered and threatened whales, dolphins, and porpoises.
I'm Dr. Juliette Wong. I'm an assistant professor at Duke University Marine Lab. I'm a marine climate change biologist.
When Dr. Peirce founded the Marine Lab in 1938, he came here so that his students and his colleagues could collect organisms and study them. At that time, the diversity of marine invertebrates was not fully understood. Nothing was known about their ecology, very little was known about their behavior. Most folks here were primarily in the old zoology and botany departments. And so we had botanists, we had zoologists, and that was kind of the old classical disciplinary approach.
Dr. Peirce, Professor Emeritus and founder of the laboratory, will point out a number of the birds and eggs on the shoal.
I was classically trained as a zoologist, like many of the faculty who were here before me. And during my PhD research, I fell into the field of conservation biology. I distinctly remember a senior scientist asking me whether I thought I could do good science and do conservation at the same time, and I said, of course. And he told me he didn't think that was possible. So coming to the Nicholas School really gave me an important intellectual home because I was surrounded by people who were doing the same kind of work. The Duke Marine Lab is probably unique amongst marine labs in that we have a number of social scientists on faculty. We work in the fields of marine policy, marine governance, ocean conservation, marine geography, community resilience, addressing important environmental issues, and really critically working across disciplinary boundaries.
As somebody who studies marine climate change and the impacts that climate change has on marine organisms and their environments, I want to make sure that my work has an impact where our research isn't only informing scientists within our field. The knowledge we gain is working to address the climate crisis. And so I was very excited to come to the Nicholas School because I believe that this is a place that will allow me to do that. Here at the Marine Lab, we have direct access to coastal and marine ecosystems. We have running seawater on campus. What this means is that I and my students can run experiments. We can go out into the field and grab samples and do environmental monitoring right in the same place where we're analyzing our samples and we're meeting with colleagues. We can take students on one of our research vessels. We have an oyster farm that's located just a short 15-20 minute boat ride away. Our location and our resources allow us to provide hands-on research experiences for students where they're not just helping in research, they're helping lead that research.
From its origins, the Nicholas School has valued experiential education. We like to expose our students to how research is conducted at an early stage in their careers, and we love seeing our students getting out in the field. Exposing our students to the breadth of that work and the breadth of that knowledge, and also teaching them how to work across disciplinary boundaries is really important. It's one of the things that Duke is really good at, the Nicholas School is really, really good at, and we feel like we're really, really, really good at here.
Students can come with their own ideas and their own interests and experiences and really help drive research projects forward.
We have almost a century now of history, and we can see how communities have changed. We have a much more tropical community of organisms here now because of climate change, because our waters are warming.
Oysters are ecologically and economically very important. And they're actually a group that might be particularly vulnerable to a number of different stressors associated with climate change. Already we're seeing some pretty dramatic consequences of changing environmental conditions on our oysters. And although we don't know the precise culprit yet, it is clear that if climate change isn't causing these mortalities, it's definitely not helping. Rising temperatures, lowered pH, lowered oxygen, dramatic changes in salinity.
Our oceans are changing, and they're changing as a result of human activities.
It's really important for us to understand to what extent these organisms are being impacted, and more importantly, how can we start to address those impacts? What can we do?
As we move into the future, a new generation of scientists is developing solutions to problems.
My goal as a professor is to teach and to train students who are going to go on to help address the climate crisis from many different angles. Policy, developing technology, nonprofits and restoration groups. We are going to need a lot of people doing a lot of work in order to build more resilient ecosystems.
I think one of the things I'm most excited about is the type of work that Juliet and Tom are doing, Brian Silliman and his group are doing, that making ecosystems more resilient, restoring ecosystems. That's also one of the things that I'm proud about in my particular field. We've been able to protect and conserve and allow the recovery for organisms that people care about, like humpback whales, which we get here in the wintertime, which used to be on the endangered species list and which aren't anymore. Sea otters have recovered. Humpback whales have recovered, northern elephant seals have recovered. We have pelicans, we have bald eagles that we take for granted now that wouldn't have been here unless we had intervened. Those kinds of recoveries, those kinds of environmental success stories I think are really important, and I think we need to do a better job of telling them.
Coastal communities are at the forefront of climate change, and when I think about ways in which we solve climate change, it's not one big thing where we're solving climate change. There's many smaller solutions that make a huge impact that can really add up over time. There are tons of things that we can do on a smaller, especially local level.
Situated here on the coast, we see the impacts of coastal storms. We see that those impacts are very uneven amongst communities and even within communities, so we think a lot about that. We think about resilience, but we think about how some parts of our communities are more resilient than others because they have more resources. One of the things I've been most proud of as director is how our community responded after Hurricane Florence, how especially our students went out into the community to underserved parts of our community and were the first people to knock on doors and ask people what they needed. And I think that speaks to Duke, to the Nicholas School, to the lab, so I'm really proud of that.
When I think about the students that I've interacted with, even just during my short time here, it's clear that they're really hungry for helping and learning and addressing problems and finding solutions. And that gives me a lot of optimism as well, because we're going to need them in the future.